now from Nashville, Tennessee, it's time for another episode of Tips, Tactics, and Tools for a Safer Tomorrow, where all things related to your safety and security are discussed, detailed, and delivered to you. You may leave with a tip that saves you money or a tactic that saves your life. So here are your hosts, owner and founder of Defend Systems, Brink Fiddler, and owner and operator of Herring Technology, Tom Herring.
Hey guys, welcome to this edition of Tips, Tactics, and Tools for a Safer Tomorrow. I'm Brink Fiddler, owner and founder of Defend Systems. With me as always is co-host and founder of this podcast, Tom Herring of Herring Technology. So, most of the time we discuss safety and security related things. That's our field, obviously. And so we're going to do the same today and talk about a particular product that I got involved with just from a consulting standpoint as far as my clients go. Over a year ago now, and it's called Haven Lock or Haven Lockdown. There's two products. And with us today is Scott Richardson from Haven Lock. So, Scott, thanks for being here.
No worries.
Willing to come on and talk about your awesome product. When you guys first reached out to me, Clay did, and we sat down for coffee, and he brought me a demo unit, and, felt like it was a good relationship because of the active shooter training, the consulting that I do, and of course the product you all have. And I agreed, but the caveat was I wanted to test it first before I would ever recommend that product. And so I did. We took a residential mechanical unit and put it on a house that was going to be demoed the next day. Did you ever see that video?
Absolutely.
Okay. So brought one of my friends from the SWAT team here in Middle Tennessee. He's a very athletic and extremely strong fella, and he brought his Ram, and we tested it.
His Dodge Ram?
Yes.
Is it a Rebel?
Tried to run it over.
Exactly. Explain Ram, Brink.
Freaking
Come
civilians,
on.
bro. God. Yes, a battering ram
Gotcha.
that was used to break in houses. So I wanted to test it on an actual house. Now, I'd seen the video y'all did, right, in a warehouse and, all that great. Awesome, but real world is testing as I could get. And it was funny because all you guys were out of town, right? And Clay didn't really know me. I mean, we had met, but I'm like, hey, I'm gonna test it tomorrow and film it. And he's like, I need to send you an NDA. He almost didn't do it, but the house was getting demoed the next day. I mean, I had a 24-hour window. Right. Anyway, we tested it, and let me tell you, it works. That lock is phenomenal. And then through the evolution of time and necessity, really, you guys have taken your residential unit, same concept, same engineering, smaller package, and developed the Haven Lockdown, which is a product more for commercial environments, schools, could be used for home as well, that mounts to the door itself, so we can put it on classrooms. Of course, that's huge on everybody's mind. And so I think it's an outstanding product. It's certainly extremely difficult to defeat, and it's just not going to be defeated by your average Joe active shooter. And I think that's great. You guys are really trying to help solve a problem. So I want to hit on your residential unit first. Can you kind of, describe for people? I mean, obviously, you can get all the information you want at havenlock.com or havenlockdown.com.
Correct.
But kind of describe for people the residential product and the concept behind it and why it came to be and all that, just the story,
Yeah. So the history of the company and how this all came about. Clay, who you spoke about, and Alex are co-founders. And so Clay's does not have a military background. Alex does. Alex was a Special Forces helicopter pilot for the Army. He did 9 tours overseas, flew Chinook helicopter. He flew a blacked out version, which there's very few of those. So Alex did all high-profile night missions with Rangers, SEALs, Delta Force, that kind of thing. So when he got back, him and Clay met working for the state of Tennessee in the Economic and Commerce Development Department. And Clay was tasked with teaching Alex how to sell because they were wanting to focus on getting some military contracts to the state, Clay had a hand in a lot of the auto contracts, for manufacturers that are here. And so they got stuck in a car for a week, and like one day in, they figured out to make the Haven lock. And it's a floor-mounted lock, about 30 inches long. It's very short. It's less than 3/4 of an inch. It tapers back, so it's made to go up against the threshold of your home. It does
A lot of people don't know what a threshold is.
the
Threshold.
threshold that you step over on your front or back door.
Yeah.
Interior doors don't have a threshold. Exterior doors do, obviously. So this butts up to it. There's a subconscious act that we all do, right? We all step over the threshold. You don't look down and make sure you get over it. You just do it. So it butts up to that. It's tapered. And because it's anchored into the floor, you're taking, in a break-in situation, you're taking all that force and energy that would be focused on, size of your finger, the deadbolt, and you're expanding that energy out through the floor over across a 30-inch steel plate that's on the bottom of the door, which makes it, like Brink said, very hard to defeat.
Yes.
So the impetus for that was Clay and Alex both had a couple break-ins in their neighborhoods, and they looked at each other and they're like, we should make something. And I kind of skipped over the part, but Alex, when he was overseas, the teams that he was dropping it off, and you're familiar too, Brink, from your background, they were welding steel bars across the bottom of the door, the insurgents were. And so rather than kick in the door and get to business like, they were there for, they then had to use C4 or some other type of explosive. They had to back up off of it. They had to blow it up. And all this takes time. It's noisy. So when Alex got back, he's thinking, well, I should make something similar across the bottom of the door. How do we do that? And they spent a full 3 years in development, R&D, started off with wood prototypes. I mean, they literally were carving things out of wood to see what they look like on the floor. And my understanding, I wasn't with the company at the time, but my understanding is the first versions they showed their wives and they were soundly rejected for being too ugly. But since then, we've streamlined them. They look great. I mean, we got black and brown, two standard colors, really. And, if you're holding it in your hand, you're like, oh, my gosh, this thing is gigantic. It's 30 inches long. It's 4 inches wide. But once you set it near the door and you set it down near the threshold, and you screw it in, I mean, it becomes part of the door.
So you don't notice it. I mean, just look on your website.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, there's video after photo.
Yeah. So that's how we got started in the residential space. We've been selling for 2.5 years now. First year, we had only the mechanical version that you guys got early on. And then about almost 2 years ago now, just right around 2 years ago now, we did our connected version, our Bluetooth wireless lock that you can now lock from the outside. Obviously, the mechanical one before, it only works with the foot pedals in the house, and you can't lock it when you leave. The connected ones you can. But we've got about 8,000 units in the wild now. Almost all of those, about 92% of those have been sold online. Very little marketing. Social media, we have never really done any print ads, done a couple press releases, word of mouth. And the last 2 months, we've had our best 2 months we've ever had. That includes Christmas, which is usually huge. That includes right after we aired on Shark Tank last year. So March and April this year, and May's trending the same way, have been absolutely massive for us. They've been huge.
Well, it's funny what happens during a pandemic when people, well, let me back up. When do you like COVID-19 better than pandemic? You mentioned earlier you don't like the word pandemic. Different episode, folks. But
yeah,
COVID's
fine.
COVID.
Yeah,
it's funny what COVID. A bunch of people stuck at home, worrying about. I mean, civil unrest and legitimately, and people wanting to feel more safe and secure in their home will do for a business like yours, right? So
yeah,
great.
Yeah, we kind of tied together. Obviously, this all happened at the same time, so we point to that right away. We sold a lot of mechanical versions, right? So I'm thinking, Tom's got a couple on a cabin that he's got, and I think we might talk about that in a little bit. But we sold a lot of mechanical ones, and so Clay and Alex and I were talking, and I was like, why was so many mechanical? And people are at home, right? And I know people that are stocking up on ammo, stocking up on more guns. I know people are stocking up on food and water. And
that would be terrible.
Yeah.
That's for their protection. The lock is.
That's correct. I've got.
So we don't come take your crap.
Yeah. And I will tell that story later too.
Yeah. I know whose friend's house I'm going to if the apocalypse happens, but yeah, I think people want to shelter at home and they want to feel safe. My mother-in-law got one just about 3 weeks ago. It took her long enough.
Now, wait a minute. Your mother-in-law just got one 3 weeks. Shouldn't her son-in-law have given her one? Wouldn't a good son-in-law have taken care of his mother-in-law long before 3 weeks ago?
Come on, Brinks. You might listen to this. Man. Come on.
Was that planned, Scott?
I'm just
No, it was
saying.
not planned. But my father-in-law has a cabin down in Herman, Missouri, which is about halfway between St. Louis and Columbia. Remote, out there. And he goes out there quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so he'll be gone a week or two at a time. My mother-in-law doesn't like to go for that long because, it's remote. But she was feeling unsafe, just with everything going on. And, we got her one eventually, Brink. Thank you. And
Let me knock those bus marks off your back.
yeah, exactly. And but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people like that, I think, right? And
your point is the mechanical because people are home. And they're not needing to leave. And I think you're right.
I think. And we've got a new version coming out, a Z-Wave version, which Tom has asked us about since the day we met, I believe, which was a while ago now. So we got the mechanical, which only operate in the home. We got the Bluetooth version, which you can work wirelessly in Bluetooth range, about 100 feet or so, which is plenty of range from your driveway, your garage, or whatever to operate it. We also have a hub, which will plug into your router, which will give you Wi-Fi capability to see the status of the lock, all the credentials that you can see on your phone when you're when you're in Bluetooth range. You can now see via Wi-Fi. So anywhere you have Wi-Fi access, 5G, 4G, LTE, someone else's network, whatever. And then lastly, we got a Z-Wave version coming out. And so for a lot of people that may not know what Z-Wave is, Z-Wave is an open platform, right, that you can tie different devices together. And it's the platform that almost all home security platforms are based on. And that includes most of the DIY ones, the Nest and SimpliSafe and Ring and all these ones. We actually did a survey of 300.
Real quick, explain people that for smart home stuff. Right?
Smart home, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we understand what open platform is here, but it's just smart home technology to tie to your stuff.
Exactly. Thank you. So people have more and more smart things, right? They want to control their home security, the cameras, the coffee maker, their
children,
TV. Yeah, exactly. Stick a little chip on them, know where they're at.
Yeah.
So the Z-Wave allows different devices to be tied in. So one of the main third-party devices that has a lot of tie-in capability is Samsung SmartThings. Right? I'm not trying to give a shameless plug because I have nothing to do with them, but it's a good example of Alexa's tied into that. So you can control Alexa through a SmartThings app. I have a stove at home, a cooktop, that I can see if a burner's on or not. This would tie into that, and it would show up as a device, right? So without getting too technical, it gives our lock greater capability to tie in to a larger, specifically home security system, which is what companies like Tom have been asking us about, because this is part, whether it's the residential one or the commercial one, it's part of a greater thing, right? I mean, this isn't the be-all, end-all. We think that both of our products are the best at keeping somebody out, but there's other components that go into it, whether it's cameras or in a school setting, alerts, or protocol that's put in place or something like that. So
it's a solid product. And right, y'all are a piece of the solution for sure.
Yes, we realize that.
Security synergy. I mean, that's what we look at.
Amen, brother.
Every piece is a piece, and I will say, I mean, personally, vouch that this is a great piece. And then part of the reason people may say, why are we asking for Z-Wave early on? The Z-Wave locks are out there, the deadbolts. Everybody can do them in their house, everything. And if you're listening, and I guarantee if you've put one in, number one, how hard it is to put in a deadbolt. But then with the seasons when heating and cooling and everything shifts, all of a sudden you're away, you're trying to use your Z-Wave over, your phone, lock your door, and it's sending the signal. It's telling it to lock, but it's shifted just enough that deadbolt will not go in.
Won't engage.
I'm in an old house, and I will not use it because of it.
Yeah.
Your device takes that out of the equation.
It doesn't matter if it's hot or cold.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's not trying to hit a little bitty hole at the end. It's the whole bottom of the door.
Yeah. Well, there's two principles that we we try to abide by, that we want to hit, right? A is the level of security, right? So, when we do presentations for potential partners, right, distributors or dealers or somebody that can sell out in the field that already has a customer base, whether it's in the security field or video or whatever it might be, the main thing is the level of security. And, you get a lot of people, well, they'll break a window. Well, the stats say that people just don't. They generally don't in a break-in. They come in through a door. And A, we're going to defeat that because we're much, much stronger than the deadbolt. And B, people want to be able to control things from remote location. That's the only reason the smart deadbolts exist is convenience. They don't offer a higher level of security. People want to be able to, like Tom, I want to see if my house is locked, or I want to be able to unlock it for somebody, or I want to see who locked it and unlocked it when. And so we're like, well, why don't we do that? And why don't we have a better lock? Why don't we actually keep people out? And that's a part that home security systems miss most of the time.
Oh,
it's just not included.
Get him started.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Jump in there, Tom.
I mean, Tom's in that world, right? I mean, it's monitoring, and when you're at home, or if you're on vacation and you loaned your cabin to somebody for the weekend and somebody breaks in and you got a camera doorbell or whatever, doorbell camera.
We know what you mean.
All you're doing is watching them, right? I mean, you can't do anything about it.
It's popcorn.
Mm-hmm.
It's popcorn cameras.
Yeah.
You might as well just get popcorn and watch them break into your house.
Yeah.
You can yell at them.
Yeah, because it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Get away.
Get away. Stop doing that.
At Tom's house, he might be able to shoot him from his phone.
Yeah.
Just saying. I mean, he is the owner of Herring Technology.
No comment.
Alarms. Back to the alarm thing. You brought up alarms. You said all the time, alarm doesn't do anything except tell you whether or not somebody broke into your house when you got home, or notify you somebody's in your house, right?
Exactly.
Same
thing. It's not calling anybody. I mean, let me rephrase that. It is calling them, but if they're busy, they're not coming right then. And
well, it's going to call the call center, who then calls the police. And, here in Nashville anyway, it's a code 2 call. And I've come on shift, right, as a supervisor, and had alarm calls holding, for 7 hours, right, that still haven't been dispatched yet, just because they get so many false calls, right? And this eliminates that. One couple things I want to hit on, too, the other feature, number one, the Z-Wave is huge for a lot of reasons, but additional, that all hazards approach we talk about, you can obviously tie it into your smoke and fire, right? So if you have a fire at your home, you really don't want that thing engaged when the fire department shows up, because they're probably going to have to break in if you're not home. And, they're going to have a heck of a time with that. So you could program it to deactivate on smoke alarm, whatever, but the accelerometer that's built in, right? Like, I think that's big. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So the technology that's in our locks, both the commercial and residential, it's overbuilt for what it does now, right? So Clay and Alex, I've been with the company, it'll be 2 years in 2 weeks, actually. And so before I came along, they had packed in a lot of technology for future use, right? Because the last thing we want is to sell however many units we've sold, which is thousands right now, and then have something come out and have to tell people, well, it's kind of obsolete, right? It still works, but it doesn't work with all this new cool stuff. So they're overbuilt. And one of the things that's in there, as you said, Brink, is an accelerometer. Accelerometer senses movement or pressure, right? So it's the same thing that's in your iPhone when you turn your orientation like this way. There's an accelerometer. It senses the movement and it adjusts accordingly. So we've got an accelerometer set up in there that can be set up in the future. It's not quite there yet, but that can be set up on if this, then that type of deal, right? So if the smoke alarm goes off, the lock unlocks. Or if X amount of pressure is applied to the door, a notification is sent, because hopefully this is engaged, right? And there's more pressure than a light breeze or a knock, but less pressure than a full-blown kick, right? Whatever that is, if that happens, then you get an alert. Somebody's pushing on your door, or kicking on your door, or something like that. So these locks are made to adapt to the times, and that's another thing where, like a standard smart deadbolt or something, they run into the hiccups, right? As things evolve in the smart home category and the smart security category, we can adapt with that. I mean, all the updates on these locks are just sent to you on your phone, and you get an alert just like you do with an email, a little red bubble with a 1 or a 2 or whatever exclamation point. And it says, you open it up, it says update needed. You go in there, you hit one button and you do it, and it's about 3 minutes. So we don't charge for that. There's no monthly monitoring fee. Again, home security systems, you're paying that monthly fee. And I'm not dogging the security system out. Again,
it's a piece of the puzzle.
We realize that we're a piece, right? But when you look at, and I'm not saying anything anybody that doesn't think through it won't logically come to the same conclusion. There's no preventative measure in home security systems that's integrated into the camera, the voice, the alert on your phone, or whatever all these things are, the keypad to set it, whatever. There's no preventative measure that's involved in that has the level of security we do.
Right.
Now, you can tie in one of the smart deadbolts, but again, you're doing it strictly for convenience. That's not keeping anybody out. So
now
it goes back to the delay, deny, destroy mentality of in
can
the
you
house.
tell he used to be a coach?
So that's why, I have a remote cabin. I mean, and when I say remote, it's really remote. So, but there are some people around there that, are maybe dabble off into some income revenue streams that aren't exactly legal that live around the area.
Maybe some unsavory characters.
Exactly. Undocumented pharmacists is what I like to call them.
Like to cheat on their taxes. Or
Exactly.
Yes.
So, in our cabin, there may be something that they would want. There's nothing in there of value, except there's a lot of times I go there to get away. Mm-hmm. And when I go there to get away, I want to relax. And so I go, and if I'm there by myself and I don't take my dog, then, I can't sleep well at night because I'm halfway having to listen.
Sure.
If someone kicks in the door, we put a lock on there to protect them, not us. Mm-hmm. So if you get where I'm going.
I get it.
And, for years I'd been doing that and I wasn't sleeping. So, it was kind of pointless. And honestly, when this lock came out, and I started looking at it, I'm like, wait a minute. I can put that on my doors, put my earplugs in, and go sound asleep because of the delay factor with this. I'm not going to say it totally denies, but it does delay. An alarm's going to go off immediately, but they're already in. And
Right.
if you're deep in sleep and someone kicks in your door, they're right there face to face with you. Guess what? They were awake, you weren't.
Yep.
And I hate to tell you who's going to lose that battle.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
So we put these in, and they do work. If you've seen the video of Brink trying to test it, it's pretty with the RAM, the
Battering
ram.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So no one's kicking it in and coming in the first time. So now I'm hearing that. I'm waking up. I'm getting George ready that sits right beside the bed that I can get a hold of and take care of business at that point. I put my earplugs in. I go to sleep. I may or may not have a little glass of bourbon that helps knock me on out a little bit more, but with this, I feel safe.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a personal thing. You hadn't paid me a penny to say that, but it works. And everyone else that stays in our cabin is the same way.
Yeah. It's like you said, I don't think anything is 100% undefeatable, but
No.
with our commercial lock and our residential lock, both of them, the goal is to delay and kind of deter them from coming in, right? So if they can't get in my house easily, I think most home break-ins last 6 to 8 minutes or something like that, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, and average police response time, especially for home break-ins, probably, unless they're around the corner, may be other things going on where there's a higher priority. But you're going to have to keep these people out of your house or get them out of your house on your own, right? And I'd rather have them, the speed's a factor. I'd rather have them try to get in my house and head on down the road. And that's what we do, right? And like I said earlier,
Well, talk about that video that we talked about. I mean, do y'all have it up on your website?
We do. It's on our website. We also have a YouTube channel where we house all our videos on YouTube. Just look up Haven Lock on YouTube and they're there. But a gentleman in, I believe, Hickory, North Carolina, who's a longtime customer. I mean, this guy bought, I think, one of our first models, mechanical. And I think he's bought a few since then too. But he sent us a video. So this is a perfect, like we were talking about, a security system or a camera working in conjunction with the lock. This is a perfect example. He's got a branded doorbell. I don't know what kind, but he's got one. And you can see the gentleman walk up and he's got a pistol of some sort in his hand. It's a black and white video, but he's got the pistol. And he's kind of holding it. It's raining, so he's got a hoodie on. And he comes up, and you can see that he's trying to get in the door, and he can't. And again, we were talking about this earlier. Are they going to assess the situation, or are they going to leave? This dude actually stands back, and you can see him. You can see the confusion, and he looks at the door, and he's like, What is going on here? Why can I not get this door open?
He's obviously done it before.
He has.
Kick and pop.
Yeah, and at that point, he actually takes the weapon and gets the weapon like like he's going to shoot the lock. He kind of grabs it just for a second, like he's getting ready to, chamber around and go to town. And then he eventually steps back and goes down the street, and he did end up firing 3 shots into a home. I guess he probably, somebody, that was, trying to protect them and not me. But they found him and they arrested him. So the whole thing working together worked, right? Our product kept him out. The doorbell had a clear picture of the guy's face. They identified him, and they rounded him up later. So that's a perfect example of how these work, not just independently of each other, because this can work independently, but you can tie it right into other things you got going on in the home.
Yeah.
One other benefit of it that we like, our doors, a lot of people have glass in the door. And so, with a deadbolt, unless it's key to key, which in most cases, in most homes, when it's key to key, the key is generally hanging still in the keyed slot on the inside.
The key becomes their latch.
Exactly. So just put a latch in, but you can take it away. Knock out the glass, reach into it. This is further away. People aren't used to it being where it is and how to disable it.
My door is the same at home. The top 2/3 is glass. If I look at my door and I think through it like Brink has for years, you think through it like a criminal, right? How are they gonna try to do this or that? They're not gonna kick my door like a solid core door. They're gonna break a pane. They're gonna reach in. They're gonna undo the deadbolt. And I still got a deadbolt. I still lock it. But then they're gonna try to open the door. And like I said, there's gonna be a moment of stepping back and what's going on here? I've unlocked the door. Why won't it open? And most likely they're going to go on their merry way, head down the road.
Yeah, they've already created a noise, which is alerting everybody, and they're at risk standing there at this point. Their element of surprise is gone.
Yeah, and that's what it is too. It's all speed, surprise, in the commercial space with active threats and things like that. Same thing, right? It's none of them last very long.
Yeah.
And same with home break-ins. They don't last very long.
Now, I'll speak to it, and Brink, you can elaborate on, but the technology that's in the lock allows it to give just a little bit instead of being a solid structure.
Yeah.
So when you used your battering ram, Brink.
Yeah.
Thank God everybody knows what a battering ram is versus a ram.
Yeah.
Not a Dodge Ram, Tom.
All right. When they hit the door, it's a little bit different than hitting just something solid, which is what they're expecting. It gives just a little bit what happens.
And it closes back in your face.
Yeah.
It's really obnoxious.
And it's on video.
Yeah, it's really obnoxious from a trying to breach the door standpoint. There's a lot of products out there that are designed to keep people out, and of course we've defeated them all. That was our job, right? But the ones, then there's very few that give just enough and then close the door in your face. And hands down, Euros does
Well,
that.
in the school video in particular, I know you did a residential one, and then we did a school one with your guy.
Yeah, same guy. Tested both.
It's a metal commercial door. I'm looking at Tom's doors here, similar.
Yeah, but we got a camera right there, so you can hold up your little.
Yeah,
stuff
I'm gonna. So, but that door was actually flexing open, not this much, but the door was probably moving this much, but the door would pop open maybe an inch, but then it'd come right back.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, that's designed this way. So if you're looking at it, if this was a manufactured like steel wedge, right, 1/4-inch steel or whatever, your hinges and your door would actually fail quicker, right, because there's nowhere for the energy to go, which is probably the part of the reason that people haven't created something like this before, because it's like, well, we have a deadbolt and that's very solid, right? As long as it holds in place for however many kicks. But this one actually flexes, so I don't know how good we can see that on camera. But that flex gives that energy again. We're taking the energy that's normally on about the size of your finger. We're spreading that over 14 inches in a commercial application, 30 in residential. And because this gives, it's got somewhere to go. So that this pushes up, the energy goes in, it's dispersed, and the door, like Brink said, it almost self-closes, and it goes back to a closed state. And because of that flex, it's a steel plate bottom. It's a plastic on top, but it's a DuPont resin called Delrin. It's actually an automotive-grade resin, so it's harder than just plastic. And then you can't see it on this model, but there's military-grade nylon webbing that goes through here that's anchored on both ends, and that gives that flex. And it seems like a lot, but that's the whole basis of why this works and why it doesn't completely destroy your door or rip it off the hinges, because it's got that give to it.
Well, I mean, it goes back to good physics for, physics experts like
Here comes the teacher in it, folks.
For every action, there's an equal or greater reaction. So when that comes in and the kick comes from the outside in,
right,
instead of it, there has to be a reaction instead of it being just a blunt stop. That energy has to go, like you said, to the hinge or somewhere else. Right. It sends it right back to where it was received from.
It's the exact opposite of a deadbolt, right? Or a thumb latch or whatever. It's the exact opposite, because you're taking deadbolt, you're taking a piece of metal, you're putting into a pretty much exactly cut out spot, hole, and there's not supposed to be a give. It's supposed to be snug, right? But the problem is there's only, I don't know, half-inch of wood trim and particle board behind it, right? It feels safe. It feels good, right? You latch it and it clicks in place and you're good to go. But if somebody really wants to get in, you're not good to go.
It bends, it doesn't break, and that's what yours does. Same reason, technology in the bumpers of a car. They want it to give away a little bit.
Exactly.
So that it absorbs that energy better than just two solid hits.
Couple features I want to hit on real quick before we wrap up. For the lockdown version, right, in commercial spaces, classrooms, offices, Sunday school rooms, all the above, you all have a couple additional features that are sitting here on the table. You have an egress button. So, there's a lot of talk about life safety codes and one motion, two motion egress, all that kind of stuff. But you all have a solution. You have an egress button. You have a motion sensor egress. So people are still going by the old fire code that actually sense your hand over the door handle and will release the lock.
Correct.
And then you also have a key fob that can lock or unlock it, whether it's the teacher or whoever's in the room can literally push a button and lock the classroom down instantly, which is fantastic. And do y'all have the other button? The
panic button?
Yeah.
We have that in production right now. So we've got an initial run with, I think 50 locks or 50 buttons. So like Brink said, this is our commercial version. So it's really geared towards schools and churches. The home version mounts on the floor. So as Brink said right at the beginning, this one actually mounts on the door. So it works on both inward and outward swinging doors, right? Our residential version only works on in-swing. If you think about the way it's set up, good thing for us in the United States, the vast majority of exterior doors swing in. But because this mounts on the door and it engages with one of these two brackets, this mounts on the door, can work on an outward swinging door and an inward swinging door. But the peripherals with which you can engage it manually. You've got a side lever here. Just one finger pressure is all it takes. To disengage it, you just push down on the gate itself. But you can engage it either remotely, either a key fob. So I press the lock button here and it locks that quickly. Again, unlock. Push it and it unlocks just that quickly. So this egress button, mine was not in my case today. My apologies, Bo. This is what it looks like, but this is paired to Tom's lock that he's got installed. It's not paired to mine, but in an emergency situation, like you mentioned via fire code, this has got to be mounted on the wall in the direction of egress somewhere. So like for this door, this would have to be on this wall or maybe even right there. And in an emergency situation, which you're probably not going to want to disengage this in the emergency you're using it on. You don't want to leave the classroom.
That's for
sure. Fire marshals don't always see it that way. Their job is to make sure everybody can get out, which we're okay with that. But you could push this button, and again, the amount of pressure to push this is very minimal. Kindergartner could do it. Somebody in a wheelchair that had access to their extremities, and they could push it, or they could hit it with their head. It goes ADA height. And then we have a panic button, which is the same as this but red. And a panic button would engage the lock.
Right.
I'm not when I think through my head use case scenario, I don't know if I want a button visible that everybody can get to engage the lock. I don't know if I want students to have that access or not. But schools are asking us for it. If they're asking, we're researching and we're trying to provide it for them. So we do have a red button in development that would only lock the button or the lock. And we're thinking, this would go in the hard corner of the room somewhere. So if this was our only entry door over here, obviously, if that door didn't exist and this one, the hard corner would be right here. We're thinking about, okay, well, if you're going to have one, put it in the hard corner where you're going anyway, right? That way anybody can engage it. Ideally, the teacher would have this on a key fob or on a lanyard, I should say. They all have a lanyard anyway anymore with ID badges, so
Sure.
they could do it. And then we have the phone app, which I'm not going to get all into detail, but you just open up the app.
Well, let me jump in because that's where I was going.
Okay.
There's a lot of products out there that lock classroom doors down where you can't get in them. Mm-hmm. Lots of them. Lots of products out there that do it and do it effectively. Right. And what I hear pushback from education clients when I talk about adding push button locks to the doors or any kind of lock that a student can lock, they say, well, a student could get in there and lock themselves in there. And I say, open it from the outside. This product you can control from outside the room. So it eliminates, my biggest fear on some of those other devices is I'm going to go in and shoot up half the classroom, take the other half hostage, right? Mm-hmm. This is controllable by an administrator or whomever from outside the room. So if the kids lock it, then fine, unlock it. I mean, it's not, right. That control, I think, is huge as far as differentiating your product.
Well, that and you've brought it up over the time that we've worked together numerous times. When an event like that happens, your fine motor skills are out the window. So if you have a manual apparatus of some sort, you got to find it. You got to go up to the door, which you don't want to go up to the door. You want to go away from the door, exactly. Right? You got to engage it. A couple of them, you actually have to open the door to engage and pull it back shut. So twofold, right? We make it easy. Hopefully, no matter how bad things are going and how bad you're freaking out, hopefully we just still remember to hit one button, right? Mm-hmm. Just push the button. You'll lock the door. And the other thing is like you said, the control from the outside of the classroom. We have a couple of schools that are actually working on it right now. So you open up the app and you can see, if you can see this or not, there's multiple locks on here. I don't know how clear that is, but there's multiple locks on my phone. So in a school setting, picture these all being classrooms, right? Yeah. So like you said, I can go, if I have administrator access, which I would, I'm an administrator, I could go unlock any door from the outside. So like you said, Brink, with the manual options, they're great. They're very strong, right? They're cheap, but they don't give you the level of access that you need. I don't think anymore. I think Brink probably agrees. Yep. You need to have that access from outside the classroom. And you just don't with a manual lock. And this gives you access to any number of locks. You can put hundreds of locks on here. So what a lot of schools are doing that we've talked to, they're actually getting like a command iPad, is what I call it, right? And so the iPad is kept in a set location somewhere. And that's all that's on there is our app. They don't have games and stuff like that. It's dedicated. So you get that app and you can go through. So a first responder, if an event happens, or they know where to go generally. There's a key box or something, right, where they go. They generally have maps or layouts of the place or whatever. And they can go and they could get the iPad, or the administrator could, or the SRO or somebody. And you could open up the app in theory and look at and see every door locked all at one time. Yep. Okay, we're on lockdown. They're all like, classroom 102 is unlocked. What's the deal? Do you have cameras? Do you know there's a shooter or an active threat in that area? These are things you can now process where you can't with manual locks. You just can't. Right. There's no way to do it.
Right. I've always been a big proponent for the panic button. Mm-hmm. I know you said, there's reason not to having access to it.
I think it's a use case scenario, right?
Exactly.
I mean, it just depends.
I've always liked the idea of it because it is a big red button. Mm-hmm. And, when you're talking to kids, especially younger kids, in the elementary ages of, when you're talking about the hard corner, in case the drill. Well, in a time of panic, if gunfire goes off in the hallway, the teacher, like you said, the last place they want to go is towards that door.
Right.
They want to go away from it. And, we have seen in past school shootings, people got mixed up on what was actually the hard corner.
Right.
They went to the wrong corner and parked.
Or they're trying to get distance, right? But they're
Correct.
still in line of sight of the door, the
exactly,
window.
the little window, which has to be there for different reasons. But now you've got a red button on the wall, and all you have to teach the kids, go to the red button. And you can push it and lock the door without having to go to it. I've always liked that idea. But the only reason I like it is because of what you're talking about with the iPad. You can get inside from the outside if you are the authorized person to do so.
And at the beginning of all this, I was really against it, right? I'm like, it's like, do you involve the students in your active shooter protocol, right? A lot of people are like, oh yeah, they got to know what's going on. Well, maybe not, because that's where a lot of these perpetrators originate from. So maybe they don't need to know everything, right? And as we've gone along and more people have asked, and we've talked to people like you, there's definite use case scenarios for it. And I'm not, it's like anything else. You're going to have to manage whatever, right? You're going to have to manage the egress button. The good thing is about both buttons is they only do one function a piece. Right. So you can't go to one button and just engage, disengage, over and over and over and over and over. So the more people we talk to, the more I think through it, going to the hard corner, it's the red button. Oh, that's where I got to go. I'm getting more and more on board, and I get more and more people asking about it. So it's one of those things where very seldom do you come up with the best idea by yourself, right? Usually it's a group effort, and so we solicit feedback from guys like you and our clients on a daily basis. It's like many improvements that we've made and products that we brought on are because people have said, hey, what about this or what about that? So we're always open to it, and I'm coming around a little bit more on the red button.
Collaborative learning, baby.
That's
Amen.
right.
Well, thanks for coming on and talking about your product. And, obviously Tom and I are both fans of the product, and I think it's, I think more people need to know about it. Obviously, I think you guys as a company would agree. I just, trust me when I say it is, it's a solid product, and, even Tom Herring sleeps better at night because of it. I mean, you talk about an endorsement, boy, I tell you what.
This is a guy who's seen a lot, man. I mean, he sees a lot all the time with his cameras. So
that's for sure.
If I can make an impression on Tom Herring, we're good.
Yeah. Amen.
I want to thank Scott for making me aware of how woefully unprepared I am.
Yeah. Listen, we already had a show about that, bro. Remember? Well, again, thanks for coming on, guys. Thanks for listening to this edition of Tips, Tactics, and Tools for a Safer Tomorrow. You can always reach out to us at tipstacticstools.com, or you can find us on Facebook and Twitter.
I'm out.